y'all seen this? And this can't be good. Welcome to She Knows DNA. My name is Miavana, and I am a board-certified genetic counselor. I know genetics has been a hot topic throughout these couple of years, and it mainly has to do with labs like 23andMe. And I'm not going to lie, they sound really cool. However, you all know that I use this platform to educate you all on all things genetics. And conversations like what's going on with 23andMe are not an exception. So, with that being said, let's get into it. Companies like 23andMe or Ancestry.com fit under this umbrella that we call direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies. What that means is that these companies do have a list of genetic testing that can be ordered directly by the consumer being the general population. These are not the same companies that myself or other genetics professionals use in a clinical setting. These companies have amazing marketing tactics because they can be very convincing as far as what all you'll be able to know just by spitting in a tube. But let me warn you, these companies and even their results are not what they seem. One thing to look out for is the use of big biobanks. What they do is take your sample and compare it to different biomarkers that they have found in certain communities and certain ethnicities, different parts of the world, and that's how they are able to list out what percentage of you is from a certain country. The thing is, though, is that there are some persons that have a whole lot more information in this data bank than others. For example, if you are white, European, there is all kinds of data out there for you. But if you're Black, there's not. And really why there's not is it just goes back to how minority ethnicities and races are not really prominent in research. Next, there are predisposition testing. So what that means is that they're looking at your DNA to see if you are more susceptible of having these certain medical or genetic conditions. So not necessarily anything that you have currently. For instance, in the clinical setting, we test for cancer genes, right? And so if you have a mutation in one of those genes, then you are more susceptible to having certain cancers than others. So this is something we use on a day-to-day basis. However, if you look on these direct-to-consumer companies and their list of the conditions, you'll see things on there like diabetes or having, high blood pressure and things of that nature, which is something that is not clinically used because of limitations and because of the lack of concrete data that is out there when it comes to testing for those types of conditions. Next, these direct-to-consumer companies test for traits and wellness. So what I mean by traits is, eye color, hair color. Will you be able to run faster than the average human? Are you going to be able to sing? Things like that. And then as far as wellness, it's are you more susceptible to have a cat allergy? Then last but not least, there is carrier screening. So that's looking not to see if you are affected with a number of these conditions, but if you have one copy of that particular gene that's involved in that condition, is that one copy not working? And then if so, then you're likely a carrier of that condition. So those are conditions like sickle cell anemia. Now, I will not bash these companies too bad because they do have some factors set in place to make sure that some of the tests are as accurate as possible. That includes the type of labs that they use to analyze their samples. They have the same type of certification and accreditation as some of the labs that I use as a certified genetic counselor in the clinical setting. Also, some of the testing that they do offer are approved under FDA. So that's some of their carrier screening, some of their predisposition testing, because those are also some of the testing that we do. The interesting part, though, is not only do they have FDA approved type of testing, but they also have just their own type of testing from research. And that's how they're able to give you this wide variety of traits and wellness and genetic conditions and health conditions. That's why they're able to do that. With those factors being known, this is exactly why whenever you look at the fine print, it's a lot and a lot of words. Even if the regular person is to read all of those words in the fine print, they most likely have no idea truly what it means, meaning that they may not be appropriately consented before actually pursuing some of these testings. One of the concerns comes with appropriate interpretation. So if you look on websites like 23andMe, depending on the package that you get, will dictate if you speaking with like a genetic counselor or even a genetic specialist, if that's going to be a part of your package. I know for 23andMe, the only one that does have that option is the biggest panel, which is like $500 or something, but the other ones do not. But yes, they do have somewhere on the website like, hey, do not believe everything you see on here, go speak with a genetic counselor, but it's not anything that is automatically happening. And not only are they saying, yes, go speak with a genetic counselor, but then they're also making that person find that genetic counselor themselves. But it is very important for us to be able to look at those results and look at the limits and benefits and the specific testing and methodology that they used in order for us to know if there is something to worry about on the clinical side. Something to think about when it comes to not only direct-to-consumer genetic testing, but genetic testing as a whole is a law that we refer to as GINA. GINA is interpreted or broken down as Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. What that does is, even if you have positive genetic testing results or things of that nature, that insurance companies or even your job cannot discriminate against you or change your policy or anything like that just because a genetic condition has been found. But be careful, because this law does not cover everyone. For example, if you work at a place to where they have less than 15 employees, this does not pertain to you. If you are actively in the military or even a veteran and have insurance through the military, this does not pertain to you. Also, like Native American insurance companies and plans, it does not pertain to you either. So you really do just have to make sure that you understand what it is you're testing for, and if something is found or even if it is confirmed on the clinical side, what that would mean. The last thing to go over is really surrounding what happens to your sample or your DNA after they have reported your results. And this is also a big hot topic, especially I know the cover picture was about how 23andMe has gone bankrupt and people are trying to buy it. And people are like, okay, but what does that mean for my data? That stuff is also, it should be in the consent process before you even give your sample, because there are some that say, okay, yes, we have your DNA, but we are never going to throw it away. Some of them say, okay, we will discharge your sample after this many months, this many weeks. And then some of them have information on there saying this will be used for science, or this will be used for research, or all these other kinds of things. And so, yes, there is a possibility to where when companies like this go bankrupt, they could be sold to another entity, and it just depends on that entity and what they want to use it for as far as what technically happens to your DNA. So, long story short, I will not be the genetic counselor to tell you that you should not be doing any of these direct-to-consumer testings. The reason why is because I find them very cool and fascinating. Yes, I do know that technically you're not supposed to take those results to heart, which you're not. Please let me or some other genetic counselor look over those results for you before you start freaking out. But I just think it's pretty cool, especially on this ancestry side. I don't know if you all have noticed, but I am Black. Okay, and just in general, it's so hard for Black Americans to be able to trace their ancestry because of obvious reasons. Slavery is the reason. And so, just to look into that for myself and my family, knowing that it may not be real, but it is pretty cool. So I just ask that if you do use these direct-to-consumer companies, to please be careful and realistic about your expectations. You feel me? And now to leave you with words of wisdom. To every Black girl out there that is preparing for Easter Resurrection Sunday this weekend, is it really ever Easter if you don't get your ear burned by a hot comb? I'm gonna let that sit in y'all spirit, because literally y'all see what my hair is looking like today. You don't have to comment and all that, I know, but I do know I got to get myself together for Sunday. My Nana used to take us shopping for our Easter clothes, so I need to do that. And I used to always get my hair straightened for Easter. And what does hair straightening for Easter mean? That there's that old school hot comb. We ain't talking about no flat irons. I need a hot comb that I am scared every time my mama puts it close to me and I can feel the heat. I need this to be a regular Easter, meaning I need to figure out how to burn my ear. It's just tradition. If you not a black girl, you don't know what I'm talking about, this is not for you. But black girls, are we still burning our ears? Let me know in the comments. All right, everybody. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for continuing to watch my videos and support. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And also, as I say every week, Lord Jesus, every week, if you need someone to come to your place of business or wherever to speak to you all about any type of genetic topic, I'm your girl. Otherwise, I ask that you all have an amazing night, and I pray that you all have the most amazing night and rest of your week. God bless you and may He keep you, and I will see you all next time. Bye.